Hi, I'm a Polish polyglot, and since 2017 I've been learning languages like English, German, Spanish, French, reaching advanced levels in all of them. Along the way, I discovered why many language learners struggle and don't achieve their goals, which means they don't learn the language that they want to learn. Most people rely on traditional methods taught in schools or use language apps, but they often don't know how to learn languages like polyglots, people who speak multiple languages fluently. Fortunately, I had a chance to learn from some of them, and now I'm excited to share these methods with you. In this course, I will guide you step by step on how to learn any language effectively. So let's dive in and start your language learning journey today. At the beginning, let's talk about motivation. I believe that many people don't know really why they want to learn a particular language, and that's why they often don't succeed in learning it at all. This is such an important step, and I still can't comprehend why many learners skip it. They don't ask themselves questions like, why do I want to learn this language? Like, what do I need it for? What am I gonna do with this language in the future? Am I going to move to another country? Am I planning to get a new job in this language and use it at work? If they don't know the answers to these questions, or they know them but they haven't really written them down anywhere, they often focus more on the process of learning without setting clear goals first. This can really drain motivation in the long term because people don't really know why they're doing what they're doing. Before you even start learning a language, you should definitely sit down, take your time, and ask yourself these questions. Write them down in a PDF or Word document and clearly outline why you want to learn the language. Imagine yourself living the lifestyle where you already know the language. You don't have to achieve C1 or C2 level, which by the way is beyond most people's possibilities. Instead, focus on what you want your life to look like. Where do you want to be? Who do you want to become? What kind of skills would you like to have? Imagine yourself as someone who already knows this language. Maybe write down scenarios where you're using this language, meeting new friends in a country where this language is spoken, or maybe communicating with a romantic partner who speaks this language. Picture these moments vividly because this will be your motivation. If imagining these things doesn't motivate you, nothing will. Before diving into methods, studying, or creating a plan, take a few days off to write down your motivations. Even if you just want to travel to, let's say, Latin America, and that's why you want to learn Spanish, imagine yourself traveling there. Write down how your trip unfolds. You arrive, check into your hotel, you speak Spanish to the receptionist, you order food, you go on jungle trip, you interact with the guides in Spanish. The more you imagine and immerse yourself in this language, the better this experience will be. And this exercise will help you fall in love with this language. And it will set the foundation for your long-term journey. Learning a language takes years, of course. If you're living in a country where the language is spoken, you will learn quickly. But if you're not moving anywhere right now, that's okay too. You will just need more time and dedication. Your motivation, however, will keep you going. So go ahead, create a text, write out your ideal life plan where you're proficient in this language you want to learn, and let that vision be your motivation. In my opinion, languages are like codes in programming. They are systems that we use to communicate with each other, and they transfer information. Language is actually a very complex structure, and in order to understand it and to be able to speak it and write it, we need to practice all aspects of it. It's easy to remember this, but unfortunately it feels like most people still don't focus on all these skills, and they tend to focus only on writing, or what's worse, grammar. I will come back to that later, but what I want to say is that they often don't focus on learning to understand this language. And languages are extremely diverse. We humans are very different. We have so many different cultures. Every language reflects its culture. How we speak our native language reflects who we are, and I think it's such a wonderful aspect of learning languages. I think learning languages is amazing because it gives us insights into other cultures and it helps us understand them more. And that's one of the reasons why I love languages, why I've always wanted to learn languages and travel. In my opinion, this is enough to understand what a language is. The problem begins when we don't implement this understanding in our language process. Most people who want to learn a foreign language focus on superficial goals, like bragging to friends or being able to order food at a restaurant. While those are valid reasons, don't get me wrong, if you want to learn a language just for the sake of learning it, that's not enough. And I know it may sound harsh, but if you want to learn a language just because it's your goal in itself, you will never truly achieve it. You need to break down your goals into smaller, more specific ones. You can't just say, I want to learn a language. You have to know why and what you need it for. But let's move on to the next topic. Your homework here is to reflect on what a language is to you. Think about the role languages play in your life. How do you see language as a code for your communication? Write down a short paragraph explaining what this language means to you and why it is important for you to know it. In the past, it was much easier to learn languages because, first of all, we didn't have all these distractions like social media. We were more focused, our attention spans were better, and we didn't know all these new secrets on how to learn language, like listening to the tapes, like some audios while you're sleeping, memorizing the 10,000 most important words. Back then it was actually way easier to learn languages because people had to talk to each other. They had to do business together. There was no YouTube, Google Translator. They were just books, and that's pretty much it. And from what I know, Julian Tuwim, a Polish writer, spoke multiple languages. He picked up languages through school, self-study, and being surrounded by books and intellectuals. He got fluent in languages like French, Russian, German, and English because of his love for literature, and his connections with people from all over the world, of course. But the point is, people back then didn't have the luxury of endless language apps or shortcuts. He had to immerse himself in real communication. Back then, people didn't have many options for learning a language. Unless they were forced to immigrate to another country, they didn't. And once they did, they were absolutely compelled to learn this language. Often because they needed to survive. They needed to find a job or just make their way in the world. When you are in that situation, you learn very fast and you don't even understand the entire process. You are just in survival mode. I think it was also easier for people in the past because there was no social media to compare yourself to others. People had to go out and speak this language. They had to try to imitate what they heard or repeat what others said just to get by. In Poland, we used to be under German occupation. Many Polish people didn't speak German, but they had to communicate with German officers. They had no choice but to pick up whatever they could hear, whatever they remembered from the street to respond to a Nazi officer's question and survive. In such life or death situations, the brain switches to survival mode. Kids would just say whatever they had heard, and because of that subconscious mind, they would often come up with words or phrases that they didn't even realize they knew. Our subconscious mind is incredibly powerful. Honestly, I think that if we were ever put in a situation where we had to survive and speak a foreign language, we would be able to say something we had heard before. But here's the thing, in order for it to happen, we have to first listen to this language. We have to immerse ourselves in it so that we can even come up with the ideas to respond when someone asks us something. When I realized this, it was a big shock for me because it meant that anyone could learn a foreign language if they absolutely had to. This realization was important for me because after high school, I wanted to move to Germany. I didn't see any other option for myself. I was 100% committed to learning German, and because of that, I went into survival mode and didn't see anything else. Our brains are incredibly powerful, and we often don't even realize how much we absorb from our environment. Anything we hear, anything we experience, we remember, either consciously or subconsciously. The great thing is about learning a language is that most of it is subconscious work. We don't need to be aware of every process happening in our brain while learning a language. In fact, we should actually be less aware of it. Because that's how polyglots do it. They use methods that allow them to absorb the language and the knowledge naturally, because they know how to harness their subconscious mind. We can divide language learning into two types, passive and active learning. Passive learning essentially means consuming the language, such as by listening to it, without actively trying to produce it. In fact, listening is one of the best ways to learn a language passively. Active learning, on the other hand, involves speaking, writing, and trying to retrieve our knowledge from memory to produce something in this language. Most of us tend to focus on passive learning, which is great, but a lot of people don't choose the right materials for their study. I know many people who use TV shows or series to learn languages. They watch shows on Netflix, often with subtitles in their native language. Honestly, this is not a good approach. I don't want to criticize anyone. Most people aren't aware of it because it's common to use subtitles in your native language. After all, if you don't understand the language, it seems like the easiest thing to do, right? Well, the great thing about TV series is that they show more than just dialogues. You can understand a lot by watching the character's behavior, character's action, without fully understanding the words. Forget about the audio for a moment. Forget about the dialogues and focus on what the characters are doing, okay? You don't have to understand every word in order to grasp the meaning of the scene. It took me years to understand this. When I first started learning English, I thought that if I watched something in a foreign language and didn't understand it, something was wrong with me, or that the language was too difficult. Now I realize that this simply means that I'm still in the process of learning. I'm passively absorbing the language, just like when I watch series. That's okay, it's totally normal not to understand everything in a foreign language at first. I want everyone to understand this. It's okay to understand absolutely nothing. Once you get comfortable listening to something without understanding it, that's when you will start understanding more and more. And with time, you'll recognize patterns and you'll hear familiar words and phrases. And if you're learning a European language, this will become much easier soon. You just need to relax, watch the series, and allow yourself not to understand anything. Since passive learning involves just watching, here's a method for you to speed up your learning. Step 1. Pick a series or movie that you already know very well. Choose something you've watched many times, like Game of Thrones or Home Alone, or since you already are familiar with the plot, you can focus this time on listening to this language. Step 2. Watch the series or movie in this target language that you want to learn. And try to focus on the language. Don't use the subtitles in your foreign language, just watch it without any subtitles. Step 3, pick 5 new words or phrases from each episode or movie, pause the video or movie, check the captions in the target language, and write down the words or phrases that you don't know. Then translate them into your native language. Repeat the sentences out loud, try to mimic the actor's pronunciation and tone. This will help you internalize the language and improve your speaking skills. Don't worry if it feels difficult at first, that's normal. It will get easier with time and it will be much more fun later, especially if you pick movies and series that you already know by heart. If watching familiar shows feels boring to you, Well, that's part of the process. The cool thing is that it is in a foreign language. If you always look for new exciting videos, series, or movies to watch, it will be harder for you to focus on learning. Many people say just watch something in a foreign language, turn on the subtitles in your native language, but that doesn't work well if you're reading subtitles. You're not focusing on listening to this language. You don't know, you're not focusing on how it sounds. It's crucial to learn how the language sounds before you can speak, write, or even understand it fully. Listening to this language, even if you don't understand everything, is the first step. Now, as I mentioned, active learning is actually much easier than passive learning because it involves producing what you already know. You don't just absorb the language, you actively engage with it by speaking or writing it. And once you start speaking, you will see your progress. What I would suggest is that you practice both passive and active learning simultaneously. Some people think they need to first listen to a language a lot or write it and only then learn to speak. But you should be learning everything at the same time. I don't mean literally at the same moment, but within the same day or at least the same period of time. You shouldn't skip speaking or writing. Practice both. However, you should focus a bit more on listening. You can listen to a radio in a target language while driving, for example, or while doing other activities. Just surround yourself with this language. We can divide language learning into two types, passive and active learning. Passive learning essentially means consuming the language, such as by listening to it, without actively trying to produce it. In fact, listening is one of the best ways to learn a language passively. Active learning, on the other hand, involves speaking, writing, and trying to retrieve our knowledge from memory to produce something in this language. Most of us tend to focus on passive learning, which is great, but a lot of people don't choose the right materials for their study, for learning. I know many people who use TV shows or series to learn languages. They watch shows on Netflix, often with subtitles in their native language. Honestly, this is not a good approach. I don't want to criticize anyone. Most people aren't aware of it because it's common to use subtitles in your native language. After all, if you don't understand the language, it seems like the easiest thing to do, right? Just turn on the subtitles. Just put the subtitles. But this method isn't effective. Imagine when you are born, you don't understand what your parents are saying, right? But you can communicate with them. Like, you cry, they feed you. You cry, they change your diaper, comfort you. You communicate through actions, even without understanding the exact words. Well, the great thing about TV series is that they show more than just dialogues. You can understand a lot by watching the character's behavior, character's action, without fully understanding the words. Forget about the audio for a moment. Forget about the dialogues and focus on what the characters are doing, okay? You don't have to understand every word in order to grasp the meaning of the scene. It took me years to understand this. When I first started learning English, I thought that if I watched something in a foreign language and didn't understand it, something was wrong with me, or that the language was too difficult. Now I realize that this simply means that I'm still in the process of learning. I'm passively absorbing the language, just like when I watch series. That's okay, it's totally normal not to understand everything in a foreign language at first. I want everyone to understand this. It's okay to understand absolutely nothing. Once you get comfortable listening to something without understanding it, that's when you will start understanding more and more. And with time, you'll recognize patterns and you'll hear familiar words and phrases. And if you're learning a European language, this will become much easier soon. You just need to relax, watch the series, and allow yourself not to understand anything. Since passive learning involves just watching, here's a method for you to speed up your learning. Here's a method for you to speed up your learning and make it more efficient. Step 1. Pick a series or movie that you already know very well. Choose something you've watched many times, like Game of Thrones or Home Alone, or since you already are familiar with the plot, you can focus on the language. You can focus this time on listening to this language. Watch the show in the target language. Step 2, watch the series or movie in this target language that you want to learn. And try to focus on the language. Don't use the subtitles in your foreign language. Just watch it without any subtitles. Step 3, pick 5 phrases that are most interesting to you. Step 3, pick 5 new words or phrases from each episode or movie. Pause the video or movie, check the captions in the target language, and write down the words or phrases that you don't know. Then translate them into your native language. Repeat the sentences out loud. Try to mimic the actor's pronunciation and tone. This will help you internalize the language and improve your speaking skills. Don't worry if it feels difficult at first. That's normal. It will get easier with time, and it will be much more fun later, especially if you pick movies and series that you already know by heart. If watching familiar shows feels boring to you, well, that's part of the process. The cool thing is that it is in a foreign language. If you always look for new exciting videos, series, or movies to watch, it will be harder for you to focus on learning. As many people say, just watch something in a foreign language, turn on the subtitles in your native language, but that doesn't work well if you're reading subtitles. You're not focusing on listening to this language. You're not focusing on how it sounds. It's crucial to learn how the language sounds before you can speak, write, or even understand it fully. Listening to this language, even if you don't understand everything, is the first step. Now, as I mentioned, active learning is actually much easier than passive learning because it involves producing what you already know. You don't just absorb the language, you actively engage with it by speaking or writing it. And once you start speaking, you will see your progress. What I would suggest is that you practice both passive and active learning simultaneously. Some people think they need to first listen to a language a lot or write it and only then learn to speak. But you should be learning everything at the same time. I don't mean literally at the same moment, but within the same day or at least the same period of time. You shouldn't skip speaking. You shouldn't skip speaking or writing. Practice both. However, you should focus a bit more on listening. You can listen to a radio in a target language while driving, for example, or while doing other activities. Just surround yourself with this language. When it comes to active learning, what I would do at the beginning is to find a book. We can divide language learning into 2 types, passive and active learning. Passive learning essentially means consuming the language, such as by listening to it without actively trying to produce it. In fact, listening is one of the best ways to learn a language passively. Active learning, on the other hand, involves speaking, writing, and trying to retrieve our knowledge from memory to produce something in this language. Most of us tend to focus on passive learning, which is great, but a lot of people don't choose the right materials for their study, for learning. I know many people who use TV shows or series to learn languages. They watch shows on Netflix, often with subtitles in their native language. Honestly, this is not a good approach. Honestly, this is not a good approach. I don't want to criticize anyone. Most people aren't aware of it because it's common to use subtitles in your native language. After all, if you don't understand the language, it seems like the easiest thing to do, right? Just turn on the subtitles. Just put the subtitles. But this method isn't effective. Imagine when you're born, you don't understand what your parents are saying, right? But you can communicate with them. Like, you cry, they feed you. You cry, they change your diaper, comfort you. You communicate through actions, even without understanding the exact words. Well, the great thing about TV series is that they show more than just dialogues. You can understand a lot by watching the character's behavior, character's action, without fully understanding the words. Forget about the audio for a moment. Forget about the dialogues and focus on what the characters are doing, okay? You don't have to understand every word in order to grasp the meaning of the scene. It took me years to understand this. When I first started learning English, I thought that if I watched something in a foreign language and didn't understand it, something was wrong with me, or that the language was too difficult. Now I realize that this simply means that I'm still in the process of learning. I'm passively absorbing the language, just like when I watch series. That's okay, it's totally normal not to understand everything in a foreign language at first. I want everyone to understand this. It's okay to understand absolutely nothing. Once you get comfortable listening to something without understanding it, that's when you will start understanding more and more. And with time, you'll recognize patterns and you'll hear familiar words and phrases. And if you're learning a European language, this will become much easier soon. You just need to relax, watch the series, and allow yourself not to understand anything. Since passive learning involves just watching, here's a method for you to speed up your learning. Here's a method for you to speed up your learning and make it more efficient. Step 1. Pick a series or movie that you already know very well. Choose something you've watched many times, like Game of Thrones or Home Alone, or since you already are familiar with the plot, you can focus on the language. You can focus this time on listening to this language. Watch the show in the target language. Step 2, watch the series or movie in this target language that you want to learn. And try to focus on the language. Don't use the subtitles in your foreign language. Just watch it without any subtitles. Step 3, pick 5 phrases that are most interesting to you. Step 3, pick 5 new words or phrases from each episode or movie. Pause the video or movie, check the captions in the target language, and write down the words or phrases that you don't know. Then translate them into your native language. Repeat the sentences out loud. Try to mimic the actor's pronunciation and tone. This will help you internalize the language and improve your speaking skills. Don't worry if it feels difficult at first. That's normal. It will get easier with time, and it will be much more fun later, especially if you pick movies and series that you already know by heart. If watching familiar shows feels boring to you, well, that's part of the process. The cool thing is that it is in a foreign language. If you always look for new exciting videos, series, or movies to watch, it will be harder for you to focus on learning. As many people say, just watch something in a foreign language, turn on the subtitles in your native language, but that doesn't work well if you're reading subtitles. You're not focusing on listening to this language. You're not focusing on how it sounds. It's crucial to learn how the language sounds before you can speak right or even understand it fully. Listening to this language, even if you don't understand everything, is the first step. Now, as I mentioned, Active learning is actually much easier than passive learning because it involves producing what you already know. You don't just absorb the language, you actively engage with it by speaking or writing it. And once you start speaking, you will see your progress. What I would suggest is that you practice both passive and active learning simultaneously. Some people think they need to first listen to a language a lot or write it and only then learn to speak. But you should be learning everything at the same time. I don't mean literally at the same moment, but within the same day or at least the same period of time. You shouldn't skip speaking. You shouldn't skip speaking or writing. Practice both. However, you should focus a bit more on listening. You can listen to a radio in a target language while driving, for example, or while doing other activities. Just surround yourself with this language. When it comes to active learning, what I would do at the beginning is to find a book. This is the most interesting topic in my opinion, because most people really focus so much on learning grammar, and I don't know why. Because what is grammar? Grammar is a part of the language, is a structure, tenses, passive voice, etc. We all use it, right? But why is it so important to ignore grammar at the beginning? The thing is, you should really ignore grammar for the first 3-4 months of practice. You should not care that much about names like passive tense, past simple, past perfect. Look at it this way. When you have a text, let's say the page that you just transcribed from a book, there is a certain grammar structures. There is probably past or future tense or something like that. And you somehow know this because you've translated this page into your native language. So you understand the overall meaning. You know what the text means. You can always look it up, you can always look up the unknown word, but then you can later say that this sentence out loud because, as I said, like you should close this page and you should try to talk about it out loud. You should try to memorize it. Of course not 100%, but let's say you just want to say something about it. When you tell someone about this page or this book that you just rewrote, you'll use grammar subconsciously. You won't be aware of these things like tenses, but you'll be correct. That's when the magic happens because you'll be able to speak and write in this language with the proper grammar and structure. You'll know how to say it, how to write it, how to talk about it, how to understand it. Because you also are listening to the same audiobook at the same time. And in my opinion, grammar should be skipped for the first 3-4 months of learning. Before that, you're just diving too deep into it. And honestly, I think it comes from school that we believe grammar is the most important thing. For many of you, this focus on grammar probably means that you skip speaking, writing, and listening just to memorize some past tenses and irregular verbs that you actually won't even be able to use because you can't even say anything. I'm not being harsh at this point. I just want to help you to change this because this approach gets you nowhere. I want you to take a step back and look at the language learning process so far. Compare it to the method I described. See how different it is from what you're doing and what polyglots do and I do. We don't do these things. We don't focus on grammar at the beginning. Instead, we focus on actually producing something in this language, focus on communicating something, transmitting knowledge. That's what language is. As I said, language is a code to communicate information, whether verbally or in writing. It's not about grammar. Grammar is just a name for this part of the code. For example, if you are a programmer and you're watching this, you'll probably understand what I mean. You have a code that you want to communicate, which means something and is responsible for something. But that code has certain elements, letters, smaller pieces of information within the bigger code. If you replace one element with another, it can change the entire meaning. And that's what grammar is. It's like those little elements that make a sentence mean something in a particular way. But if you change one element, like changing a sentence from past to future tense, the meaning can change dramatically. But you need to understand the whole code first before you can break it down. You should learn from general information to the detailed information. At the beginning, detailed information isn't that important, especially if you are not learning the language for school or college. If you're learning just for yourself or because you want to travel or move to another country, grammar shouldn't be your main focus at the beginning. I'll show you later how to approach grammar once you understand more and more and you are able to talk about a wider range of topics. And don't get me wrong, grammar is important, but it's important later, not right at the start. It's not necessary to learn it in a traditional way either. You should learn grammar, but in a different way than most people do. And it's not about memorizing rules. It's about learning grammar through practice, by memorizing the texts out loud, by talking to yourself, discussing things that you wrote down, like from these books. Later, when you see things repeating themselves many times, you can look them up. I will show you later how to do it. I will show you later what tools you can use. But at the beginning, diving into grammar too soon, before you will start to speak, will just discourage you. Grammar. This is probably the most interesting topic, in my opinion, because so many people focus on grammar. And I don't know why. This is the most interesting topic in my opinion, because most people really focus so much on learning grammar, and I don't know why. Because what is grammar? Grammar is a part of the language, is a structure, tenses, passive voice, etc. We all use it, right? But why is it so important to ignore grammar at the beginning? The thing is, you should really ignore grammar for the first 3-4 months of practice. You should not care that much about names like passive tense, past simple, past perfect. Look at this from this way. Look at it this way. When you have a text, let's say the page that you just transcribed from a book, there is a certain grammar structures. There is probably past or future tense or something like that. You know, and you somehow know this because you've translated this page into your native language, so you understand the overall meaning. You know what the text means. You can always look it up, you can always look up the unknown words, but then you can later say that these sentences out loud because, as I said, like, you should close this page and you should try to talk about it out loud. You should try to memorize it, of course not 100%, but, let's say you just want to say something about it. When you tell someone about this page or this book that you just rewrote, you'll use grammar subconsciously. You won't be aware of these things like tenses, but you'll be correct. That's when the magic happens, because you'll be able to speak and write in this language with the proper grammar and structure. You'll know how to say it, how to write it, how to talk about it, how to understand it. Because you also are listening to the same audiobook at the same time. And in my opinion, grammar should be skipped for the first 3-4 months of learning, because before that, you would just dive too deeply into this. And I know this belief comes from school, because before that, you'll just be diving too deeply into this. And I honestly know where it comes from. At school, we've been taught that this is the most important thing, to learn grammar. And for many of you that focus too much on grammar, it means that you skip writing, speaking, because you want to memorize some irregular verbs and phrases that you will never ever use because you won't be even able. Fuck you, work! Why the fuck does it... Oh my god. Before that, you're just diving too deep into it. And honestly, I think it comes from school that we believe grammar is the most important thing. We've been taught that it's the most important thing. For many of you, this focus on grammar probably means that you skip speaking, writing, and listening just to memorize some past tenses and irregular verbs that you actually won't even be able to use because you can't even say anything. I'm not being harsh at this point. I just want to help you to change this, because this approach gets you nowhere. I want you to take a step back and look at the language learning process so far. Compare it to the method I described. See how different it is from what you're doing and what polyglots do and I do. We don't do these things. We don't focus on grammar at the beginning. Instead, we focus on actually producing something in this language. We focus on we are focused on communicating something, transmitting knowledge. That's what language is. As I said, language is a code to communicate information, but whether verbally or in writing. It's not about grammar. Grammar is just a name for this part of the code. For example, if you are a programmer and you're watching this, you'll probably understand what I mean. You have a code that you want to communicate, which means something and is responsible for something. But that code has certain elements, letters, smaller pieces of information within the bigger code. If you replace one element with another, it can change the entire meaning. And that's what grammar is. It's like those little elements that make a sentence mean something in a particular way. But if you change one element, like changing a sentence from past to future tense, the meaning can change dramatically. But the meaning can change dramatically. The meaning can change dramatically, but you need to understand the whole code first before you can break it down. You should learn from the general to the detail, from general information to the detailed information. At the beginning, detailed information isn't that important, especially if you are not learning the language for school or college. If you're learning just for yourself or because you want to travel or move to another country, grammar shouldn't be your main focus at the beginning. I'll show you later how to approach grammar once you understand more and more and you are able to talk about a wider range of topics. And don't get me wrong, grammar is important, but it's important later, not right at the start. It's not necessary to learn it in a traditional way either. You should learn grammar, but in a different way than most people do. And it's not about memorizing rules. It's about learning grammar through practice, by memorizing the texts out loud, by talking to yourself, discussing things that you wrote down, like from these books. Later, when you see things repeating themselves many times, you can look them up. I will show you later how to do it. I will show you later what tools you can use. But at the beginning, diving into grammar too soon, before you will start to speak, will just discourage you. And there's so much more to say about it. There are so many verbs, so many things. You can even ask yourself, like, will it ever be possible for me to learn a language while using these methods? No, never. So focus on learning grammar instead. Page of the book that you just rewritten. Later, when you see things repeating many times, you can look them up. I will show you later how to use translation tools to help with this. At the beginning, if you dive into grammar too soon, when you start learning a foreign language, you will get so discouraged because there's so much you don't know, so many structures, so many verbs, and you will ask yourself, is it even possible to learn a language? Well, no. It's not possible if you try to do it that way. Never. So focus on learning grammar through texts and rewriting them. So your homework here from this module is to focus on communication, not grammar. Practice language without focusing on grammar rules. Rewrite a passage, rewrite a text. Choose some short text or paragraph from a book in this language, write it down without worrying about grammar, and share this here with us. And try to memorize it. Try to, after writing it, close this and try to recall and speak it out loud. Focus on communicating the message, not perfect grammar. Record yourself and share it. Reflect on this grammar. And write down how it felt for you to focus on communication instead of grammar. How do you think this approach will help you later? This task will help you shift focus from grammar rules to real communication, making learning feel more natural. There are several exercises for learning a foreign language that I've been using for the past years, and I got them from different polyglots. The first one, as I mentioned earlier, is rewriting books. The next method is very similar, but we use the videos from YouTube for it. Once we have created a plan outlining exactly what we want to learn, including all the subtopics, weekly and monthly goals, the next step is to find YouTube videos where people talk about these topics. As I said before, it must be real people speaking, not AI, because it's important to learn authentic language. For example, let's say your first topic is family. As I mentioned earlier, I do rewriting exercise only twice per week, on Monday and Wednesday. On Tuesday, I would do a dictation. Here's how it works. I would find a video on YouTube related to the topic I was learning, and I would start rewriting what the person is saying. I would listen to the speaker, and after each sentence, pause the video and rewrite what they said. If the video was longer, I would usually end up rewriting 2 or 3 pages. The more you rewrite, the more you learn, so I would just aim for 2 pages and I would write it in my notebook. Once I had finished rewriting the 2 pages, I would read them out loud, following along with the person in the video. The speaker might be talking about family, but also about other things like their car or the food they ate for breakfast. Even though the main topic is family, you will end up learning about cars, food, and daily routines too. This is the beauty of this exercise, because you get to absorb more knowledge than expected. And when I was a beginner, I would rely on captions to help me with words I didn't know. Even if I missed some words or made spelling mistakes, that was okay, because I would go back later, turn on the captions and correct the mistakes with a red pen. This helped me realize that it's okay to make mistakes when you're just starting out. Some words I wrote there were completely wrong, and that's okay. You can always check your mistakes. There's also an app that I use to extract captions from YouTube videos, which I will link below. You can copy the captions, paste them into the translator, and the translator will, translate them into your native language to better understand the content. You don't need to translate everything. This exercise is great because, just like rewriting books, you're listening to someone speak in your target language while writing down what they say. Later you can read the text aloud. This allows you to practice all skills at once: listening, writing, speaking, and reading. The next step is to summarize what you've learned. Here's how I organize my week, for example. On Monday, I rewrite a page or 2 from a book. On Tuesday, I do the dictation. On Wednesday, I rewrite another page or 2 of a book, of the same book. On Thursday, I do another dictation from a YouTube video. On Friday, I summarize previous exercises and practice speaking. On Thursday, I would find another video on a similar topic, but this time from a different speaker, different person, preferably from a different country, or person of the opposite gender. That gives you a chance to hear different accents, expressions, and ways of speaking. For example, if your topic is family, you can find a video of a different person talking about their family in a similar way, but with their unique perspective. This helps you learn different slang, accents, and nuances of the language. It's fascinating because you are not only learning the language, but also diving into the cultural differences and individual expressions of the speakers. On Fridays, I would try to summarize the dictation from Tuesday and Thursday. I would either write a brief summary or try to say it out loud from memory. It didn't matter if I couldn't recall everything perfectly. The goal was to engage with the material and practice speaking. I will also try to remember the key points from Mondays and Wednesdays rewriting session, aka transcribing session. The speaking practice would begin with a 20-minute timer. During this time, I would talk about myself, about whatever came to my mind related to the topic I learned this week. You can imagine you're having a conversation with a friend or someone else in this target language, and if you don't know a word, just use a translator, write it down, and practice it immediately in context. Even if you run out of things to say, just sit there and wait for your timer to go off. Eventually, you will find something to say. If you're just starting, you may only be able to talk about what you learned that week, for example, family or my job. But as time goes on, you will have more topics to talk about. Week after week, as you practice these exercises, you will build fluency. I will do this speaking practice almost every day, not just on Fridays. As you get more advanced, you will have more things to talk about and you won't feel stuck. On weekends, I would read aloud the text I had written that week, including the pages from my book and my dictation summaries. I would also record myself while reading. This not only helps with pronunciation, but also boosts your confidence because you will be amazed at how much progress you can make over time. On Saturday, I will record myself reading the pages from the book I wrote. On Sunday, I would do the same with the dictation. I found that recording myself on camera helped me gain confidence, especially when I imagined I was giving a presentation about what I had learned. You could create a private Instagram or TikTok account to publish them just for yourself so you can track your progress. Imagine doing this every week for an entire year and seeing how much better you've become, how much your accent has improved, and how much more confident you are. It's such a rewarding experience. At first, you can feel embarrassed because, we all dislike hearing our own accents, especially when we're just starting out, but every time you will find it incredibly rewarding and you will be so happy to make this progress because I remember how excited I was when I started to see improvements. Then next week you can repeat the process. Let's say your next topic is your job. Just find people on YouTube who talk about their jobs, rewrite their videos, do dictations, and summarize what you've learned. Then talk about it almost every day for 20 minutes. As you continue, you'll realize how much you've learned. Not just words, but entire concepts connected to different topics. And that's the key to fluency. You'll know how to talk about your family, job, hobbies, and much more because these things are interconnected in your mind. By doing this exercise regularly, you'll start to see the logic behind the polyglot success. It's not magic. It's just a consistent targeted practice. Polyglots absorb knowledge across various topics, making them able to speak fluently about a wide range of subjects. You can do the same too. Also, you need breaks, studying time blocks. This will help you maintain focus. One effective method here is the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro is interrupted learning. For example, you set an alarm for 25 minutes and during this time you focus completely on studying. You don't interrupt, you don't daydream, you don't check social media, you turn off, you don't check notifications, you don't go on any other websites. After this Pomodoro session, you can take a 5-minute break for something enjoyable, like going for a walk, playing with your pets, kids, or eating a snack. Then you return to studying for the next Pomodoro session. Your sessions can also last longer than 25 minutes. If you can maintain your focus for a longer period of time. For me, concentration is high for about 35-40 minutes, after which I need a few minutes of break. I think finding time to study is actually the most difficult thing because even though you know what to do and how to do it, if you still don't have time to sit down and start, you will never learn it. The thing is, in today's world full of distractions, people in most cases will just postpone things for later, for the next day, for the next month, but the truth is you should just start small now. I know the plan I just showed you with these exercises and the weekly schedule is pretty big. It's a big deal. It will take you 1 or 2 hours per day to learn and study languages in the way that I just showed you. But the thing is, if you are really serious about it, you will make time. You will find time. You will empty your calendar. You will get rid of all the distractions that block you. And let me be honest here. If you track what you're doing with your time every day, you'll be shocked by how much time you waste. For example, if you spend 2 to 3 hours per day scrolling on social media, that could be the time you spend on learning a language. Honestly, if you really have a reason to learn it, If you need it because you're traveling somewhere, you're changing jobs or moving to another country, you will find time. It's just not your highest priority if you haven't made time for it yet. But if it is, now let's go. I'm going to show you exactly how I used to study 2-3 hours per day while having a full-time job. For example, when I had a morning shift that started at 6 a.m. and finished at 2 p.m., I would listen to the audiobook I was using to rewrite the book on my way to work. I would play it randomly. It wasn't like I would always follow the pages I was rewriting. I would just go with the flow, continuing where I left off last time. I really wanted to listen to the language. I was German at that time. I just wanted to absorb it as much as possible. Now, I worked physically in a factory. I was living with my parents in Poland. I just finished high school, but I would also listen to the audiobook while working. Why? Because I could. I knew how to hide my headphones, but I know not everyone can do that. I was listening to an audiobook that was 8 hours long, and I would repeat it every day. Sometimes I couldn't listen to it because there was more work to do, so I would focus on the task. During the lunch break, I would listen to the audiobook again. Actually, I felt comfortable doing this. Honestly, if you're willing to listen to the same audiobook over and over again, you will learn so much. But of course, that's not mandatory. You can choose a different audiobook to listen in your free time. You know, when I came back from work, I would eat a meal, take a nap for 1 hour, and then study. So around 4 p.m., I would start studying until 7 p.m. And then I would have dinner with my parents before going to sleep. In those 2-3 hours, I would do exactly what I told you before. When I had an afternoon shift, when my work started at 2 p.m. and finished at 10 p.m., I would study in the morning. So when I woke up, I would study for 3 hours according to my plan before going to work. Then I would listen to the audiobook on my way to work, just like before. I did this every day and on the weekends because I also worked on the weekends. And on the weekends, I would just repeat what I had learned during the week. It was more exhausting, of course. But as I said, it is completely possible even with an 8-hour workday. Of course, if you work 12-hour shifts, that will be harder, but you can still make it work. The plan I just showed you is the ultimate way polyglots learn languages. It's demanding, I'm not gonna lie, but that's how you really learn a language. If you do this, you will learn the language very, very well. Over time, you will keep improving. Now, not everyone can do this. And it's not just about finding time for it. It is really about wanting it so badly. Because many people who will watch this video or this course will take some advice and not implement everything I say. That's okay, of course. Maybe it's not for them. But honestly, if you're one of these people who really, really wants to learn a language because you know why you want it, you will make time for it. Your homework assignment from this part is to find time to study. Track your day. For the next 2 days, write down how you spend your time. Focus on where you might be wasting your time, like on social media or TV, and find free time. Look at your schedule and find at least 30 minutes each day that you can dedicate to learning the language. Creating a plan is actually very easy. It is the easiest thing to do. As I mentioned earlier, you can use the free template from my website where you will find a daily planner with what you can do each day and so on. Or you can create your own plan, but in my opinion, the one I provided is very good and it's free, so you can just steal it. The key is to focus on the topics that are really important to you. As I said, write down what you really need to learn in this language and visualize your dream life in the motivational section at the beginning. That will become your plan. If you have topics that are important to you, for example, at the beginning, it might be about you, your family, your job, whatever is most relevant. In the second month, the topics should be still important, but perhaps not as urgent. Here are some examples of topics you can use, but feel free to modify them. If you're already at a high level, you can skip the basic topics and move on to the more challenging ones. For instance, when I was studying German before moving to Germany, I already knew many topics about family and so on. I was at around B1 level and reached B2 within 6 months just because I used these exercises I mentioned earlier. That's all I did. My topics were a bit more advanced because I wanted to deepen my knowledge of German. For the first month, I focused on German history, politics, and the country itself. The first week was German history, the second week was Polish history, the country I come from. The third week was global politics, and the fourth week was about current situations, like strikes or ongoing events. Since I was at a higher level, I could dive deeper into subjects that interested me. In the second month, I focused on topics like the environment or recycling, things that are highly relevant in Germany. The entire month was dedicated to environmental topics, and I found videos related to these topics, created dictations from them, and studied them in detail. So here's how I structured the first month. My monthly goal was I can discuss politics in Poland and Germany in German language. Week number 1, I can discuss politics in Poland. Week number 2, I can discuss politics in Germany. Week number 3, the history of German politics. Week number 4, the history of Polish politics and what's going on now. And my second month, how I structured it, monthly goal, I can talk about the environment in German. Week number 1, recycling in my country. Week number 2, the global issue of waste and contamination. Week number 3, recycling in Germany, how it works. Week number 4, the future of the environment, predictions and what might happen. I found these topics really interesting and I enjoyed learning about them. Mondays were dedicated to reading from the same book. Yes, I know you're probably tired of hearing it. The next day was dictation from a video on YouTube about environment or recycling. On Thursday, I did another dictation from a different video, and on the weekend, I repeated everything I learned throughout that week, and I recorded myself talking about it. I did 2 dictations from videos which present every of these topics. Week number 1, I can discuss politics in Poland. Week number 2, I can discuss politics in Germany. Week number 3, the history of German politics. Week number 4, you can see that on the screen, by the way. So in total, I had done 8 dictations per month. You can see everything in a plan I'm showing on the screen. It's actually pretty convenient. You just follow my method and adapt it to suit your personal interests. Change a few details to make it your own and you'll be good to go. If your goal is, for example, to work in a given country or engage in discussions, that doesn't mean you should avoid things like reading or watching TV shows. Language learning is comprehensive and you need to combine all elements when working on a language. You can't skip any of them. It's generally accepted that for free conversation, you need around a few thousand words, approximately 6,000. To understand movies, videos, and TV shows, you need around 8 to 9K. For novels, the most, 9 to 10K. For manuals and guides, less, also around 8K. These are the minimum values needed for reading or listening to a text and understanding it at least in at least 95%. This is also the best foundation for further learning. So your homework here is to create a 3 to 4 month language learning plan and focus on the most important topics to you. Pick 3 to 4 topics that are the most relevant to the language goals, like work, family, hobby, culture. Set monthly goals. For example, month number 1, I know how to talk about my job and my daily life in this language. Month number 2, I know how to discuss my hobbies and my interests in that language. And break down the monthly goals into weekly goals. So for each month, divide your goals into weekly tasks. So share your plan with us here in the discussion below and I see you in the next chapter.
There are a few cool websites that I use for translating. I stopped using Google Translator many years ago as I realized that it's actually not accurate. Right now, I only use DeepL.com, and it's a translator that I use on a regular basis when I'm traveling and when I wanna know something. And also, I use the translator for my regular plan for my study whenever I need to translate something. It is very accurate and it's free, up to like a few thousand words, and then I think you have to register and pay something, but it's not a lot. It's very cool, and what I really like about it is that when you click on the word that it's translated there, you can actually also see similar translations of the same word. You can see its synonyms, and in this way you can kind of also learn what this word means by looking up the synonyms. The second translator that I use also to translate certain phrases that it's hard to translate because they are like slang, or these things like they just don't really make sense, but native speakers use them. So there's this translator Context Reverso that I use. So for example, when I find something on a YouTube video that I'm rewriting, or I'm doing quotation from it, or I still understand this, because DeepL.com sometimes doesn't show me the exact meaning of it because it makes no sense to it, then I copy and paste it to this Context Reverso. And the cool thing about this page and this website is that it's free, of course. These expressions on this website, the examples there, they're from different books and movies, so you can actually see how people use them in real language, in real situations. What I can suggest you is that you create your own sentences later with these phrases. And I would suggest picking 5 up to 10 most interesting ones from one book or from one video that you recently watched or read. And you can also create your own sentences from that. This translator is very good. There's also Pons that I use, but it's just basically for translating grammar things, like different grammar structures, because I don't use it on a regular basis. It's a bit complicated, and some things there are actually not very useful in my opinion, so that will be it. And for the software, I would just use my laptop, Microsoft Word or Google Document, my Gmail, Google Sheets, Excel, if I'm on Microsoft. And I also have a notebook where I always write the pages, where I do this transcribing video, and where I write my plan and all the details, and yeah, and YouTube of course as well. And that's basically it. You don't have to have anything else. I have never used anything else for that, and I think these are the best pages. I think these are the best websites, and these are just the best tools for learning languages in my opinion, so try them out. How to hack grammar. I think this is one of the most interesting topics for most people, because everyone wants to know grammar in some way, even though, as I've said, it's not strictly necessary. However, when you reach a point where you realize that there are aspects of it you already know, things you see in the text, you're rewriting, patterns you recognize in the videos you watch or in the books you're copying, that's a great time to start diving deeper into grammar. And before I explain how to hack grammar, I want to share something important. You don't need to know the names of specific grammar structures or tenses. If you know how to use them and understand these patterns, that's enough. You don't need to memorize the names. For example, I don't know all the names of grammar structures in English, but I know how to use them and what they mean. You don't need to worry about the exact terminology unless you're studying this language academically. I'm going to show you how to understand grammar structures by comparing them to your native language. If you're European, especially, it's going to be easier because many European languages are very similar. For example, let's say you are a native English speaker and you want to learn Spanish. You can literally compare the grammar to your own language. Take this sentence, I have gone to cinema, or I have gone traveling. In Spanish it would be fui al cine, me fui a viajar, or estuve viajando. You can compare estuve or me fui to the English I have gone. It is the same translation, so you can start to see the patterns. And that's why I recommend picking 5 interesting sentences from each text, from each page you rewrite. Later you will start to notice patterns in those sentences. If you translate them into your native language, you will know exactly what each word means. You will understand what I, you, he, went, and gone mean in the context. You will see how everything connects. For me, the best exercise to learn grammar is when I notice patterns I don't fully understand yet, but that I see everywhere. And I may not understand them completely, but I can get the general meaning. And when I notice them, I look them up on the internet, on the translating websites, as I've mentioned in the previous chapter, to figure out exactly what they mean. There are many great grammar websites, especially for European languages, that I always use. They offer excellent explanations. Once you start recognizing the structures you're familiar with, write them down so you can track what you want to learn next. For example, after a while, maybe after 1 or 2 months, or even 6 months, you might start writing sentences in the present simple or past simple. You write sentences in the past, but they should also reflect something meaningful in your own life. For instance, if you usually go to school or work at a certain time, you can write about it. For example, I went to school at 6 a.m. or I went to work at 5 a.m. These sentences should be based on your real life experience, not just abstract examples. And the best thing is to not only write sentences, but also write full descriptions or summaries of the day using the past tense. That way, everything is in the past tense. Later, you can memorize it by heart, you can read it out loud, or copy and paste it into a translator to hear the pronunciation. You can even use an audio recorder to record it on your phone and listen to it whenever and wherever you want. Remember when I said that on weekends I record myself saying things out loud and post them on my private Instagram account? You can do the exactly same thing with these tense sentences. It's a great way to have all your knowledge in one place. Later, when you scroll through your profile, you will see how much progress you've made. Then you can do the same with other grammar structures, with present simple, past simple, and present continuous, and then gradually move to more advanced tenses and grammar structures like passive voice, for example. As I mentioned before, look up how these structures work in the language you're learning. You can create your own sentences that have meaning in your life. Just remember, don't mix different tenses in the same text. If you're practicing present simple, don't mix it up with other tenses in one. Focus on one structure at a time. When you start feeling confident with a structure, you can move to more different ones, like passive voice or future perfect. But to start, focus on one structure. Write 5 or 7 sentences that are truly meaningful to you. It is also crucial not to mix structures, as I said. Your brain can't focus on multiple structures at once. It's important to stick to one structure per text, or a group of sentences like 5 to 7. If you're focused on one structure, your brain can better absorb it and apply it. When it comes to advanced grammar structures, things like very specific parts of tenses, sentences, or rare forms used by native speakers, you can find examples of them online. Here, comes context reversal, for example. Here can come context reversal. You can always create your own sentences too. This is the best part about learning a language. You get to know yourself better. Learning a language doesn't just teach you vocabulary or grammar, it also makes you reflect on your life, your beliefs, and your habits. This self-reflection is incredibly valuable. And that's why I always say that the language learning process is therapeutic. It opens up new perspectives on your own life. When you're learning a new culture or new ways of thinking, it changes how you view your own life and beliefs. It's fascinating. So don't focus too much on the tiny details at first. Start by creating sentences or texts using just one grammar structure. Don't mix tenses. Write 5 to 7 at a time. If you write more, your brain may start to feel overwhelmed. So pick grammar structures that you've already encountered in videos, books, dictations, or real life, and start from there. On my website, I also have a free template with all the grammar structures of the languages you're learning. You can check it out and see what's more important and which structures you should start with. As for grammar, you don't need to practice it consistently. Once a week or every 2 weeks is enough, especially if you are a beginner. Grammar can be postponed. Grammar can be skipped until you feel more comfortable with the basics. If you don't have any deadlines, just take your time. Don't get discouraged by grammar. It's just a small part of the language. Focus on using the language actively. By speaking it, writing it, and reading. You can learn grammar along the way, but don't let it overwhelm you. Remember, practice and output are much more important at that stage than worrying about every grammatical detail. So your homework here is to practice grammar by creating sentences based on the patterns you see in the language you're learning. Write down a text about a situation in your life, in the past tense, future tense, and remember, these things must be real. These situations must really happen. And post it down here in the comments. So there are a few things that I used to do and still do when I'm learning a language. Do you remember when I said that at the end of the weekend I summarize the things I know? I record myself trying to say them, and then if I don't know something, I open this text or the summary, and I try to remember it. I try to say it out loud again, and then I record myself. Sometimes after I'm done with it, I set a timer for 20 minutes and I talk to myself in this language. So I would even bring up things from the Excel sheet, like sentences I've worked on, and I would read them out loud and create conversations around them, to basically practice them in conversation, to practice being fluent with these words. And that also works very, very well. And another thing I used to do, especially when I was traveling, is if I didn't have time to sit down and rewrite a book, was to keep a diary in this language. I used to do that when I was in Mexico. That was the most interesting thing I did when I was learning Spanish. I did it almost every day. I journaled in Spanish every day. And of course I used translator at the beginning when I didn't know anything. It was really cool. When you're traveling, I think keeping a daily journal is one of the best and easiest ways to learn a foreign language, because you just write down what you did, what happened throughout the day, and maybe next day you're gonna talk to someone and you have things now to talk about. You will tell them about the things you wrote in your journal, and you can be sure that this is 100% correct, because as I said, when you're writing in your journal, you can of course use translator and that's what I did too. I also remember that there was a time when I learned a song by heart. It was Shakira's Gypsy in Spanish. It was one of the first songs I learned when I started to learn Spanish. And it was really fun. Writing down the lyrics, then singing along and memorizing it is a cool exercise. Even though songs can be tricky because they often use slang and shortcuts, and some things don't really make sense, well, it's still fun. But I wouldn't rely too much on it. Sometimes I would also write a letter in that language I was learning. I would start by writing it in Polish and then translate it into the target language using the translator, you know, or I would write the recipe for my favorite meal or a summary of my favorite movie or book. These are great exercises. You can also include them in your main topic, but I didn't really do them often. I would just do them sometimes when I wanted to practice something at that very moment. It is important to remember that you can always adjust your plan as you go. Like I said earlier, there's a 12-month plan on my website. You can create your own plan for 2 or 3 months. Planning for an entire year can feel overwhelming. It's better to focus on just 2, 3, or 4 months at a time, writing down exactly what you want to learn and modifying your plan as you go. You might come up with new ideas along the way, as I said, but don't overschedule. Don't overschedule, don't plan every single detail. You know that. Know what you want to learn, but don't script it out fully. Trust me, if I had an entire year's plan in front of me right now, telling me exactly what I have to achieve, I would feel overwhelmed too. So I prefer to plan my study for 2 or 3 months at a time and then adjust the plan as I go. It's important to stay flexible because things changes, because life happens. I know I haven't mentioned a lot that you should talk to people in this target language. I know having a conversation with native speakers is important, but actually staying focused on these methods that I told you in this course is more important because when I moved to Germany, I spoke German every day. But before moving there, I didn't speak German at all. I spoke German to myself, but I didn't speak with native speakers. I had conversations online once per week with a German native speaker, but that was it. I moved to Germany and I started to speak German at work. So I got a job in German before even speaking German on a regular basis, which was funny. So when I was living in Germany, I also focused more on grammar, but I had already learned a lot. When I was living there, I already knew a lot about grammar. I actually knew a lot. But when I would speak with native speakers there, it was kind of challenging. I had a teacher when I was living in Germany, still the same one, and she would explain to me all these things that Germans used that I didn't know. Like all this slang and all these things that are just not very clear. Yes, you should talk to native speakers as much as you can, even if you make mistakes. Don't worry about it. You're going to make mistakes. It's a part of the process. And don't be afraid of making mistakes. Just try to express yourself. You can even go into your neighborhood where people speak the language you're learning and ask them for time or direction somewhere. Put yourself in a situation where you have to use that language, and that will help you a lot. And absolutely don't worry about mistakes. They are not lethal. Mistakes won't kill you. You won't die from making a mistake. And I'll tell you more about this because I think this is one of the hardest things for people to overcome. So what you can do after this chapter is to close the text that you just wrote in this language from a book or from a YouTube video and try to tell about it in your own words, or even try to recall the words that you wrote them. But begin by saying it out loud. Reflect on what you've read, make sense of it, connect it to your own thoughts and examples, then write it down. Challenge the author's ideas, analyze them. Rewriting something in your own words means putting your own insights and understanding it, not simply paraphrasing it. It's about you. It's about you understanding what you're saying. It's about you understanding what you're writing. Try linking emotional states with vocabulary. This makes it easier for your brain to remember it, so it's worth using. If you're feeling something, immediately look it up, how to express this emotion in this language you're learning. If you're feeling joy, excitement, or a sense of well-being, or if something remarkable happened, name those emotions in this target language. If you're experiencing anger, disappointment, frustration, name those feelings too. Can you do this? If not, keeping a journal in the language can be helpful. The Pareto principle states that 20% of the material contributes to 80% of the knowledge of skills. This also applies to language learning, both in terms of vocabulary and grammar. While language might have thousands of words, roughly 20% of them will allow you to use the language effectively in daily life. When learning grammar, memorizing only about 20% of the rules for a specific topic will allow you to construct 80% of grammatically correct sentences using that rule. In fact, mastering just 20% of the grammar in a language, since grammar can be vast and complex, will give you 80% of the ability to form accurate sentences. The key is learning the right 20%, whether it's vocabulary or grammar. The strategy is to focus on the main concept of each grammar point and avoiding complicating things at first. You'll catch up with more details over time, and you will notice when certain elements start to be missing. By then, you'll have developed enough skills to understand what's lacking and where to find it. And at that point, it won't be overwhelming. It will just be a small details to fill in. The second strategy is to learn what is absolutely necessary for constructing simple, correct sentences. How do you identify these essentials? You'll recognize them each time you try to say something but struggle because you lack a specific grammatical element. The third strategy emphasizes that most languages share similar structures. That's what I mentioned earlier. So understanding specific grammatical elements is crucial. Before you even start learning, listen to individual words, try to figure out what they mean. Don't get stuck on this stage. Move forward when you're ready. This is how I learned a lot of English and grammar and German. Even if you don't know anything at all, which is unlikely as you've probably encountered the language at some point in school or throughout personal, interest or through personal interest, you can still start by watching a TV show. People often give up after just one episode because they don't understand anything. But who says you need to understand every word of a language you don't know? You'll soon start to picking up on recurring sounds, and that will spark your interest in this language. That's the key, being curious and wanting to know more, even if you don't understand the meaning of those sounds yet. Start writing down any word, any phrase that you catch, that catches your attention. Over time, you will start understanding some words from context. Even if you're unsure how to spell what you're hearing, write it down as best as you can. I don't recommend learning entirely on your own without any help. Many people say things like, I can't do this, it's too hard, I don't have time, I'm too old, it's impossible, it's overwhelming. But hey, this mindset can be flipped. Instead of I have to, try saying I choose this, I want this, it's beneficial for me, I can do this, I'll try a new approach to learning and I will see progress. Learning is fun for me, I enjoy it. I enjoy the process of watching something and understanding more with each session, with each episode, recognizing more words and being able to say more. I love this time when I love this time that I get to spend on myself watching something in a foreign language. I love doing this. I have time for it. I'm capable, and I repeat to myself, I'm capable of learning, and I'm proud of myself for sticking with it. When it comes to habits, we tend to stick with what feels familiar, and it's harder to push ourselves to try something new. Familiar habits create comfort, and we tend to stay in our safe zones. But those new habits, the ones that require effort at first, can become familiar too, and then we'll naturally gravitate towards them. Keep a positive mindset about the language and the learning process, and you'll see improvements. When I work with my students, I simplify things for them. I teach English, I teach German online. I make sure to pronounce endings clearly because those endings are crucial to learn. I slow down my speech and I adjust sentences to the student's level. Textbook recordings are also simplified to suit the learner's needs. However, people in everyday situation don't speak like that. So it's essential to be prepared for real natural language. And it's good to start this preparation from the beginning. You need to understand authentic natural language, not textbook language. No one speaks in a textbook way. That's why from the very start it's important to expose yourself to real natural language. I know it may seem like all the words are blending together into one long stream where constants are swallowed, endings are dropped, and the pronunciation sounds very different from what you see in writing. We do the same thing in our native language. If you avoid this now, when will you get around to learning it? When you're abroad or at work, where you need the language and realize that these years of study didn't help, the years of Duolingo didn't help, how does it make you feel? It feels horrible, right? What else can you do? TV shows. Watching shows in a foreign language is a regular habit of mine. I watch them in different languages depending on what I feel like at the moment. If I were to turn on a TV show in my native language, I would get so frustrated. I wouldn't like to see it. I don't even see a point in watching something in my native language because it's a waste of time. I've just gotten so used to watching TV shows in a foreign language that I can't even imagine watching anything in Polish now. You know, it excites me to watch something in a foreign language. It excites me to see something different. And that's a good habit. I really recommend it. You know, changing your habits can make a huge difference, especially when so far you used to watch TV series in this foreign language but with subtitles. You know, exactly, watch this show without subtitles. And watch this show again. Watch this show twice. You will notice new vocabulary that you missed at the first play, that you've missed the first time. When there are a lot of new words in one episode, let's say, especially if you're a beginner, it's hard to catch a lot of them. But when you watch an episode for the second time, these new words will reveal themselves. And when people said to me, yeah, sure, you will learn German from series, you will do that, yeah, for sure. I didn't even respond to that because I knew better. After just 3 episodes of my first exposure to German, I knew already 20 words more without spending any time on formally studying it, and I knew that I could get only better from there. Words represent objects, actions, and abstract concepts and conjugations. The brain learns the names of these things either by seeing the object or performing an action. You are in a situation, feeling emotions, and you learn to name those feelings. Humans have a natural tendency to name everything, and we don't forget it. What we forget are the words learned from the lists or flashcards. Those artificially memorized words. When older people have memory issues, do they forget words? No, they forget what they did, but the words remain. The brain might trick us, but no one would say house on the cat because no one has ever tried to force themselves to memorize cat or house in a detached mechanical way. Don't postpone your study. There will never be time when you have more free time for an extended period of time. There will always be something. Stop putting it off and at least do the minimum. Find a show you like and get started. Watch at least one episode a day and reward yourself after each accomplishment. But it's important to reward yourself after achieving something, not before. I always reward myself after completing a task, whether it's a long or short one. For instance, I promise myself that once I finish something, I will take some quiet time to read, or I'll treat myself to new clothes, or I will take a day off, or even a few and go somewhere. So your homework here is to take a text or summary you've written in the target language, read it out loud, then try to explain it in your own words. Record yourself doing this and listen to it. Check if you made any mistakes, review it again, and continue the next text. So here comes my final motivation. And I think what I'm about to say is so freaking underrated. I don't think people realize that learning a language is a bottomless pit. It can take years, thousands of hours to speak, communicate like native speakers. It's a very, very complex skill. And to reach a very high level in a language, you need at least 7 years of consistent practice. But you have time. Of course you have time. Because what else are you gonna do? Do you have anything better to do than focusing on your dreams? And as I said before, if you have a reason to learn this language, you will learn it. And as for mistakes, every single person on this planet makes mistakes. I make mistakes in my native language all the time. People make fun of me on YouTube, in real life. They say it's funny because I preach about how to learn a language and I still make mistakes myself. Well, the thing is, languages are hard and it's normal to make mistakes in general. We should not care that much about mistakes, to be honest. Of course, we should accept the feedback when someone corrects us, but there are certain things that are actually very funny about it because when you're traveling and trying to communicate with people, in some countries people will correct you and in some won't. In some they will not even care about it at all. They will just try to help you. For example, in Latin America, people are super friendly. It's so easy to learn Spanish there because everyone encourages you to do it. On the other hand, I think in France, for example, it can be hard to practice French because some people might look down on you or they won't even want to help you and they may even make fun of your accent. But here's the thing, you should never care about it. You should never care if they care and you should never care if they don't care. The only thing you should care about is that you're putting yourself out there to speak and practice this language as much as you can. And I really mean anytime you can. Just do it. Even if you don't have any situation to speak, create it. You can even call a hotel in a country where this language is spoken and ask for prices of the rooms. It is the best way. If native speakers are unreachable where you live, call a hotel. If you don't have an international SIM card, there is this app called Yola. For $1 or $2, you can call any country. You can call someone in any country on this planet. And I honestly think that calling a hotel is the best exercise because they will not make fun of your mistakes. People there will be very professional. It's a hotel. I think it's a very convenient option. You just need to put yourself out there. Go for exchanges, do volunteering in the places where this language is spoken, go to places, cinemas, gatherings, even heck, even events in your city where you know people speak this language. Trust me, even though I come from a small town in Poland, I still managed to find German native speakers in my hometown, and there are not many foreigners there. Can you believe that? In my hometown, there was actually a small community of Germans who would gather, speak German, and this community consisted of retired Germans and Polish people who wanted to learn German, just like me. I would go there every week for a few months and practice it with them for free. Well, there are a few classes I paid for too, but that wasn't a lot of money. I remember thinking, I'm going so far just to surround myself with the German language. There's no way I'm not going to learn it. Of course, I'm about to be fluent in this language in a few years, maybe in a few months. There's no other way. I was putting myself in a situation where I was consistently practicing this language. German became a part of me. And that's what has to happen with you. The language you're learning needs to become part of you. And the best way to explain this is that when you learn a foreign language, you're actually becoming a new person. You're actually becoming someone else. You create another personality in that language. And as you wrote in the beginning of your motivation, this text, to yourself, this dream life where you speak this language, you literally create another perspective on your life. You become someone else. And sometimes, honestly, people would judge you for that. They will call you out. They will say things like, are you trying to act American? Are you trying to act German? Are you trying to act Mexican? Whatever. Are you trying to be French? Don't care about them. Of course, I'm trying to act like a person from a certain country because I want to learn the language they use, and the best way to learn a language is literally to act like a native speaker from that country. You just copy their behavior, you act like them, and I think that's beautiful, by the way. I think it's one of the most fun things you can do. Imagine yourself as someone from the country where this language is spoken. For me, English was always connected to America. German was always connected to Germany, French to France, and Spanish to Mexico because I've been there a few times, so my Spanish is more Mexican than Spanish from Spain, than Castellano. It's good to pick a country you want to resonate with. So, my tip, get obsessed. People will call you crazy until you've achieved what you want to achieve. And then they will look like idiots, literally. Literally. People will call you an idiot before you succeed. And then once you do, they will feel like idiots. Because there's no way that after doing everything I said in this video, you won't achieve your dream language level. There's no way. If you do everything I said in this course, I'm 100% sure you will achieve it. And as I said, people will talk down on you. They will call you out. I remember people saw my progress and they tried to drag me down. No, you're too obsessed. Stop acting so weird. You're not German. Why you're acting as if you're German? You're not a person from that country. Well, who are these people? Are they native speakers of the country where you want to live? So why you care about them? You should, I know it's hard, but you should cut yourself off from those people who say these things because they're not good for you. They don't have good influence on you. My parents also made comments like that, but they always knew that I wanted to move to Germany and they supported that vision. They would say things like, yeah, she's crazy, she was always in her room speaking German. But, she wants to move to Germany, so I get it. What I can also recommend, if you don't have any privacy in the house and you want to practice speaking, just go out, just use headphones and pretend to be on your phone, and talk to yourself in this language. This allows you to practice and still be like quiet about it, because I remember myself whenever I had this 20-minute exercise where I would speak to myself about something in this language, I would just sometimes go out and like put my headphones on, and I would pretend to be on my phone, and like, here, I mean, you don't have any excuses not to do that, because everyone can do that. Everyone can go out with their headphones on and speak in this language. And don't care what people think. It's always the people who are below you who will talk down on you. The people who have what you want in life will never discourage you. They will never say things like, oh, it's impossible what you're trying to do. What you really need to do is to tune yourself into the frequency of the person you want to become. You have to tune yourself into the vibe of the person who speaks this language. That's what I mean when I say you have to become that person. You have to create a new personality, because you are becoming someone else. You are creating a second brain. And people who speak multiple languages, they have a few personalities. It doesn't mean they're borderline. It just means they have certain behaviors that change depending on the language they're speaking. Let me tell you something interesting. Did you know that when you speak in a foreign language, your voice actually changes? Your voice is never the same. And that's the same with your behavior, the way you think. So now you understand why I seem to be so weird? There's so much more to it. And honestly, once you learn one language, learning another one is so much easier, especially, if you're learning a European language, because they are so similar, especially Latin languages. I learned English, then I learned German, and because I already knew English, then I learned some French, which was easy because I already knew some English and German, and then I learned Spanish because it was already somehow similar to French, and my native language is Polish, which is insanely hard, especially the pronunciation. But Polish has made me very flexible if it comes to pronunciation in other languages. Just get started. Do what I say in this video, rewatch it, make notes, or copy the transcript and follow it. In 2025, you will see that in 1 year, you'll be a completely different person, a brand new person. I don't like these levels like B1, B2, C1, because I think they're just labels. But whatever, if you're a complete beginner and you do what I say in this video, you can reach a B1 or B2 level in a year. I would say B2 because B1 is actually a bit low, so I would say like you can achieve a B2 level within a year. If you're already doing this, you're going to get better and better and better. And if no one believes in you, I believe in you. And if no one thinks you will achieve it, I know you will. I am your biggest fan and your biggest supporter. I wish you all the best in the next new year. Let me know in the comments what exactly you're gonna do after watching this video, after watching this course. Let me know what your plan is, what topics you want to focus on first, and if you have any questions, write them here in the comments or message me. You can find my email on my profile. Check out my other websites, check out my other videos, check out my other courses, check out my website for a free planner and journal and other things I have there that are free. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys so much, and have